Ronald Ernest
Craig.
Craig. How old are you, Ronald Ernest Craig?
I am now 86 years old.
86 years young.
Yes, that's right. And up until recently, I've been very active and very fit, but unfortunately gone downhill a bit.
Yeah.
But other
in
than
the
that,
last year or so.
last year it is, yep, for nearly a year. Yeah, but however, apart from weak legs, I'm fine.
So where are you living these days? What tells us
We live in a retirement village now. We've been here for over 10 years, and it was only 5 kilometres from where we lived for 40 years, so we're still in the same neighbourhood, and we're very happy here. A fairly small village compared to some villages, but just enough for us. It's one of the mixtures, which is interesting, in that it's a mixture of townhouses, which have their own gardens, front and back, and apartments in the main building. Some of those have gardens if they're on the ground floor, but otherwise they don't have gardens, they just have balconies. But we're very happy here. Yeah.
Yep. And prior to this, you're in a house where?
In Glen Waverley, and it was on an old previous golf course, so it was called the Golf Course Estate, and we bought a block of land there and had a house built to our design, and we lived in it for 40 years, a long time. Yes, but it was very convenient because my wife taught at the local school, and our 2 children went to that local school, so it was very handy. They could walk there, and I never travelled much at all, so that was good.
No trouble much with work, you mean?
Yeah. No, in the whole 37 years of teaching, I didn't move outside the region, and even went to school. My primary school and secondary school were all within that region, and Teachers College.
So unlike mine, you didn't get sent all over the state?
Not at all. My first appointment was from Albert Park to Brighton.
Oof, big move.
Long way, yeah.
So like 8 k's down the road.
That's right. Train and a tram trip. That was about it, yes. I was very fortunate. I was well looked after.
You sure were.
Yep.
Where'd you grow up? Where were you born?
I was born in Kyabram, which is a country town in middle central Victoria, and as I understand it, I don't remember it, but I understand we were on a farm at that time. But we did move into the town itself, and I can remember being in at least 3 different houses there, so they obviously weren't houses that we owned. And we left there as a family when I was about 6. So I don't have enormous memories of the time in Kyabram. There are certain things I remember, but mostly it's after we moved to Melbourne. And we stayed, when we came down, we stayed with our auntie, that's Dad's sister, who had a house in St Vincent Place, which is a very upmarket place nowadays. And we stayed with her, because she had quite a double-storey building, for, I can't remember how long, probably a few months. And then I started school at Middle Park Primary School.
At the age of what, 6? 7?
7 I would have been by then, or nearly 7. And we had moved by then to a house in Albert Park still, and I went there for the year in grade 3.
Middle Park Primary.
Middle Park Primary. And it must have been at the end of that year, the family had intentions of going back to Kyabram.
Oh.
But it didn't happen. We didn't go. So having left school and left Middle Park because of that, I then went to Albert Park, which is much closer, and I don't know why I didn't go there in the first place.
Albert Park
Primary.
In what, grade 4 maybe?
Grade 4.
You would have been what, 9?
8.
8 or 9.
Yeah. And then stayed on at Albert Park. And at the end of grade 6, the majority of students either went to Middle Park Central.
Secondary, high school.
Well, Central School. Central schools were feeder schools to the high schools.
Oh, like the Middle Ages.
Yeah, Form 1 and 2.
Ah, okay.
And or to
It's a separate school, just for Form 1 and 2.
yeah, that was the central part of the same school that I'd been to as a primary school,
you're just moving
same
to
place.
that area. Oh.
Yeah, and or others went to South Melbourne Technical School if that was the area they wanted to study in. However, no one told me what I should do or advised me, and I was rather surprised nowadays when I think about it that no one advised me where I should go. So I stayed on
At the primary school?
at the primary school, which was then called post-primary.
Okay.
And it was
Obviously, it was allowed.
it was allowed. It was grade 7 and 8.
Oh, there you go.
And they were mainly for people who were just going to leave school and work. That was it.
Yeah, not go on with schooling.
They weren't the greatest students. But I stayed on in 7 and 8, and at the end of year 8, if you were 14, you could leave school, or if you got your merit certificate, which was at the end of year 8, you could leave school. So I got my merits into grade 8, so I left school at 12 and a half.
He still got it, you know.
12 and a half.
What's he got, Mum?
A merit certificate, yep, which entitled me to leave school. But at 12 and a half, it's fairly difficult to get much work. So we looked around, and my sister helped me, and we decided to re-enrol at Middle Park, but in the Central School this time.
What a good idea.
But I had to go into Form 2.
Which you'd sort of already done.
That's right. I had virtually repeated a year. The only difference was that it involved a language, French. It involved algebra, geometry, history and geography, which I had not done any of those at Albert Park.
Oh, gosh.
So I did Form 2, and it is a feeder school to Melbourne High School, Melbourne Boys High School.
Yeah.
So I went on to Melbourne Boys High School.
Now, did you have to sit an entrance exam?
No,
because
not in those.
days you do.
Not in those days. You automatically went from a central school, and there were about 6 central schools that fed into Melbourne High.
And
Yeah.
how would you get from Albert Park, where you lived, to Melbourne High, which is on East Melbourne, on the Yarra?
Train into the city, walk to the station, which is a fair way. Train into the station, 2 stations into the city, catch another train out to South Yarra, and walk from the station to the school.
Oh, that's not too far a walk, actually.
No,
South Yarra Station, isn't it?
not too bad.
About 400 metres, probably.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
When you were young.
Not too far when you're young.
No.
Ah.
And so I stayed on then and did. I went into Form 3 there then, because they didn't do 1 and 2. They started at 3, so I went into Form 3, and did.
Did you find it hard, or were you a good student?
Well, once again, I have no idea why I did certain things, but I opted to do 2 languages,
Okay.
which meant I went into the academic stream. There are various streams. There was commercial, there was science and so on. An academic one involved learning French and German.
Oh, my goodness. Oui.
Yeah, why, I have no idea. Anyway, I passed, they were right. I was a great student.
You weren't a great student.
No, really, and things were very difficult because of our living quarters. There was nowhere to study or do anything at home. So I did room 4 and 5 and passed each of those. I gave up German after Form 4, but continued with French to Form 5.
Yeah.
And then at the end of Form 5, because I'd found it fairly difficult, I'd passed everything, but fairly difficult, the supervisor of Form 6 suggested that perhaps I might find matriculation rather difficult and should consider whether I should do it or not. However, as usual, I did nothing and just battled and did it.
Just did it anyway.
Did it anyway. Ignored him. And passed all subjects at matric.
Well done.
But
so that's the top level.
That's the top level. That's
HSE or VCE.
That's right. The year 12 it is now. They've changed the numbers.
No, matric.
Matric.
Funny names for things.
Matriculation. Well, you had to matriculate to go to the university.
Okay.
Which turned out fortunate for me later on.
Yeah.
I hadn't intended at that stage, of course, going to university, but I had accepted a studentship from the education department to do primary training, and that's primary teaching. And so I went to Burwood Toorak Teachers College, which had only just started the year before.
Wow.
And so I did my 2 years there and enjoyed it very much. And at the end of it, decided that I'd like to become a phys ed teacher, physical education teacher. And so I applied for an extension of the course and was granted that, which meant another 2 years of study at Melbourne University, which I was able to take because I had done matriculation.
Yeah, so
it turned out fortunate
that you finished your high schooling.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
So I then went on for another 2 years study. And by that time I was 22. When I, having left at 12 and a half once, I was then 22 the next time I left. And finished the course at the university and enjoyed that very much.
So that was the campus, the main university campus at
Melbourne.
Carlton,
yes, except the facilities in those were unbelievable. Our office, our headquarters was a tin shed, an old army tin shed. The director and the assistant staff, there were 4 main staff, they all had offices in that. We went for our lectures at various arts buildings at the university. We spent 1 day a week at the YMCA building down in South Melbourne.
Yep.
And that's where we did our swimming and our gymnastics and boxing and wrestling and everything like that. And even one day went to the YWCA up in top of Melbourne and did folk dancing. And other days we went to Melbourne Teachers College, which of course was next door, to use their gym because we had virtually no facilities. It was only a diploma course, not a degree course. And in my second year there, Sir Frank Burrough made a big donation to the university for them to build a swimming pool, which they did. So it was there the next year. A beautiful gym, swimming pool, and so on. But it was a bit late for me.
Well, you'd left and finished.
I'd left, yeah. Right. So we'd put up with all the rest of the things, or lack of things. Okay.
So just going back to your primary school in Canberra, you started there, you're probably 4, 5 maybe?
4
what do you remember about
4 and a half.
Do you remember anything about that at all? First year of school?
Yes, I do.
What was it like?
I remember we actually at that time had a shop, a little milk bar.
Your family did?
Yeah, opposite the school where people would come and get their lunches and so on. And to get to school, we had to cross a little paddock. And you know what happened there when we were on our way to school?
No.
The magpies swooped us.
That's ironic.
Isn't it? Yes. So that's a long while back.
Just been on 7 years talking about magpies.
That's right. Well, that's what had happened.
Oh, did you get scared?
Yeah, of course. I was only little. And I can't actually remember much of school except that I have a certificate in my possession that says I was second in prep.
Second in the grade.
Second in prep. How they assess prep classes, I
Like it
have
was
no
a
idea.
running race.
I don't even remember being in prep. But anyway, I've got a certificate that says I was second prep. Well, then when we came, I must have gone to formal grades 1 and 2 there as well.
Yeah, prep 1, 2.
And so I did grade 3 at Middle Park.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
most of, but I can't remember doing the prep.
You
But
don't remember much about life in the milk bar? Did you help out at all with the milk bar?
no, I was too young.
Yeah,
Too-
yes, a
too
little
young,
bit. And
yeah.
you had, what was the family setup with the siblings? You
I had
were-
3 sisters, but the eldest sister was 12 years older, so really she had left school and was working when I was a baby. So we really didn't get to know her all that well at
What was her
that
name?
time. Jo, or Dorothy. Jo was her nickname.
All
And
right, I'm listening again.
she was the eldest. Then there was another. The second one was Delma, who unfortunately died fairly young at 52 with cancer.
Dell, you used to call it. Didn't you?
Del. And then Beryl was the next one, nicknamed Pop for some reason. Anyway,
And then you were the youngest.
and I was the youngest, and so they were all a lot older than me. But that's what I mean. I don't remember a great deal. Little incidents at Kyabra, but not a great deal. But I can remember a fair bit of
Life at
life at Albert Park.
So
He-
what was
he-
you said the house was not much sort of room there to study or no formal rooms. So
Now-
what was the house like?
It was a 2-storey house. It was rented by the lady who lived downstairs,
Yeah.
and she sub-rented the rooms upstairs to us. Jo, of course, wasn't living at home by then. She was working as a child, what did you call it, a governess, I suppose, for a doctor's son.
Oh, yes.
And,
Like a full-time carer.
yes, live-in.
Carer.
Yeah, to doctor, who was actually the doctor of the Carlton Football Club,
Yes.
which is interesting.
So there's you and Beryl and Dell
Yes,
and your
lived
mum
and Dad.
and Dad.
Yeah, and me.
That's right.
That's right. And I slept out on the open balcony.
What do you mean, open balcony?
Well, it was a 2-storey balcony place, like
Yes.
so many of the houses in that area.
Terrace house.
Terrace house,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
right.
Like with the wrought iron sort of...
Across the bottom, yeah.
The balcony edge was timber slats or wrought iron sort of...
There was a wrought iron railing across the front
Yes.
and wooden slats for the things. And
Okay.
2 big open windows. You moved through those into the lounge area.
So you slept out there on the... Oh, that was your bedroom?
That was my bedroom, yes.
On the balcony?
Yes.
No,
right,
without a wall?
right through the year. There was a blind.
Without in midwinter?
That's why I hardly ever get a cold, I reckon. No, that's why I slept for quite a few years until Dell got married and then Beryl got married. So I had a room inside then.
So you were, 8 at that point, moving to Albert?
Yep,
Sleeping out on an open balcony as your bedroom?
yep.
That's a bit rough, isn't it?
Got used to it. There was no choice. There were only 1, 2, 3 rooms upstairs.
So it sounds like your parents didn't have a lot of money behind them.
They
that
didn't
they
have-
could rent a bigger place. Or
They
buy a
didn't
place.
have any money. Really. Mum was still working
Where was she working?
at Bruce Smalls, which is Malvern Star Bikes.
Oh yes. What
And
did she
she-
do there?
Put the spokes in the wheels
Oh yeah.
for Hubert Opperman, the fastest
yeah,
rider.
Robbie.
Yeah, and Sid Patterson. She did those. And I worked there a couple of times pre-Christmas. Did the same sort of helping. But she worked there till she was 72.
Wow. What about your dad? Did he have a job?
Yes, off and on. During the war, he worked in the munitions factory at Footscray.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we came to Melbourne, actually.
Ah.
and then he worked at a place called Jenkins, which did steel stuff,
Yeah.
polishing and so on.
Oh yes, little engineering place was it?
Yeah, Jenkins.
Manufacturing.
Yeah, tray. We had a steel tray for a time.
Yeah.
One of those. And so it's eventually he left at one stage, and so there was only Mum and I used to cook the meals and do the washing, and
So your sisters
they'd
had
gone
by this stage.
they'd gone by
to,
then. Both got married.
work or
And
got married.
married, yeah, both got married.
Didn't they marry two brothers?
Joe and Delma married twin brothers, actually.
George and
Gordon,
Gordon. That's right. Dalton.
Dalton. Both are who are dead now.
Yes.
And
So twin boys married two sisters.
yeah, they actually met dancing at a place called the Trocadero, which is where now Hamer Hall is.
Heard the Trocadero.
It was a dance
Sounds
hall.
very exotic.
Yes, and because
Sorry.
They
no
were
sugar
in-
for me, Mum.
they were in the air,
Cashew milk.
they were
Thanks.
both in the Air Force, and I think that's probably where they met at the Troc.
Oh, who the brothers were in the Air Force?
Yeah,
George and
Gordon.
Gordon were in the Air Force. Ah.
Yeah, and behind the Trocadero was Worth's Circus.
Oh yes.
Now that's all gone. It's the National Gallery now, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, all that has changed.
Wow. Right on St Kilda Road there.
Yep. And City Road used to go around the corner past the YMCA and down Sturt Street.
Yeah. So in the end, it was just you and your mum at home for a while.
That's right.
Yeah. And
Yep.
Did your dad come back? Did you know where he'd
Yeah,
gone?
yeah. Well, he was kicked out virtually, I think.
Okay.
He was a very heavy drinker.
Ah. So did you know where he went for that time?
Yes, he stayed with another
The boarding house or
another one of his sisters.
Yeah. I'll hold it. No. Is that for me?
His his older sister,
Thank you.
who had rooms in Albert Park
right,
as
so you
well.
could stay with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he
For a
came
time.
back eventually.
Yep. When I left.
Okay. But in the meantime, you and your mum were there, and she was still working at the bike factory.
That's right. And I was.
So you went through primary school at Albert Park, then Melbourne High,
Middle Park in between.
and
Then
what was
Melbourne
life
High.
like then, just in terms of sort of the suburb
Well,
of Albert Park?
it-
Were there cars everywhere, or was it trams?
hardly any cars anywhere.
You want a coffee for yourself?
No.
It was a working class suburb because all that area, all the inner suburbs like Fitzroy, Collingwood, South Melbourne, it was actually South Melbourne, Albert Park, Middle Park were parts of South Melbourne.
Yes.
South Melbourne had its own town hall and everything, but Albert Park didn't. And
Because those suburbs now are very exclusive suburbs.
very, very,
And
very
all the homes have
exclusive.
been beautifully renovated.
A lot of them have been,
You know,
yes.
You're talking multi-million dollar
Multi-millions.
homes here now. But you were saying in those days it was a working class suburb.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The basic homes, people with
Yeah.
sort of lower incomes.
Our area, there were just the two terrace houses. All the ones both sides were little single-storey ones.
Right.
But the other side was predominantly terrace houses.
And not many people with cars.
Hardly any.
How
None
many people must they get about?
on the train. Well, there was one thing about the area, apart from many other things, was the transport, because it was only a short walk to the train line, which went one way to St Kilda, the other into the city. There were two tram lines, one each side of us. One went down to the South Melbourne beach, the other went through to St Kilda. So both of those were
Pretty good access to public transport then.
probably less than a kilometre away
walk.
from home. So you had three alternatives if you wanted to go into the city.
Did you have a bike?
Not at that stage, but I did buy one later with the bursary that I'd been given to become a teacher, to go to teachers' college. You were given a bursary in leaving.
Something like a little sort of scholarship payment.
$50. £50 would have been in those days,
Oh,
I
that's
guess.
quite a lot in those days.
It was. And I got it for 2 years, so I used that to buy a bike.
A Malvern Star.
A Malvern Star
If I'm
bike
not
with,
incorrect.
with my name written on it, because Mum had it made or the writing for me.
And when did you start getting so heavily involved in sport? Was that through high school?
No, it was really through the South Melbourne Presbyterian Church, because Auntie Elsie, the one we stayed with when we came to Melbourne,
Oh, yes.
she went there through the gardens to the church,
Yep.
and that's why we ended up going to it. So I
Yep.
went to the Sunday school and the church and everything else. And it was at that time when basketball was just starting in Melbourne, being introduced, of course, either ward
From the
by the
American
Americans.
soldiers.
Yeah. And
What's that in
the Presbyterian church itself had a competition of its own, so that any Presbyterian churches could play in that competition.
Okay.
And so the South one, with all my friends, decided to have one in.
Have a team.
Yes, and we played up at the exhibition buildings. That was where basketball was played
What,
in
in
those
Carlton,
days.
near the current museum?
Yep, that's
Melbourne
it,
Museum.
the exhibition building.
Wow.
That's where basketball started, even the top competition.
They have basketball courts inside the exhibition building?
That's right, and they used to put the temporary boards up each night, and you'd play up to 4 games a night. There'd be one very early, then they'd go through.
Yeah.
And so we played there for a number of years. And tennis we played because at the church itself we had a little old asphalt tennis court.
Yeah.
So we played
Like
tennis
a lot of
there at the
churches
weekend.
around Melbourne used to have tennis courts.
Yeah,
didn't they?
and this
Part
was-
of the
that's
church
right.
grounds.
Oh yes, and
It's a funny thing when you think about it.
Yes.
Church to have tennis courts.
Yes.
Like,
so that's how I became involved in the basketball, and that became my main sport throughout the early days, particularly. And I played with them from under 14s right through up to senior grade, and we ended up playing in a competition out at Fitzroy, near the Fitzroy footy ground. It was the last year I played with them, and at Teachers College I played for the college there, and then when I finished with the Presbyterian competition was when I was going on to university.
to Melbourne Uni.
Yeah, so I decided, well, I should transfer and play with them.
They had a team.
They had a team, they had 2 teams actually, and having gone there, I was made captain coach of the club.
They could see the potential.
They could, obviously. And a couple I knew from Prezi Church competition. Anyway, ended up playing with them and going on to InterVarsity in the second year in Hobart, which was great, wonderful.
And what was your role in the InterVarsity team?
I was the captain and the coach
Of the
and
national
player.
team?
No, that was of the Melbourne team.
Oh, going into
And then at the end of the competition, which went for a week with a university from each state, which is only, there were 7 teams, I think, and that's the number of universities there were in Australia at
7
that time.
total.
7.
one each city, basically.
Every capital city. Plus there was an extra one in New South Wales called the University of Technology, which had only just started. So we played then at the end of the competition. A team was selected to be the Australian team, and it was to play against the Tasmanian States team that night at the end of the competition. We'd already played 2 matches that day,
Oh,
and then we had this third match, and the team that year for the first time was allowed to pick the captain. Previously it had always been the winning team's captain,
yes.
but they decided to change that and allowed the team to pick the captain, and the team picked me. So unfortunately the one that they had selected as the coach was the coach of the New South Wales team, which had won the competition, and he got the huff because his
His captain wasn't
captain wasn't
chosen.
selected, and he went off. So I was left to
You were the coach as
and
well.
captain of the
National university teams.
yeah,
And then you had to play Tasmania State team.
and we beat them.
Yay! Good match.
I don't know. We won by a point, I think.
And what sort of role was you? Were you where did you mostly play?
At that stage, I mainly played as a guard,
Yeah.
and because you could control the team better from there than as a forward. But I played a lot of teams, and the university
Shooter?
team. Yes, yeah. When I
Get good scores?
ended up playing as a forward, as centre, depending on which team I was playing for. But then when university finished, I no longer wanted to play with them, so I went to YMCA and played in their competition. And there were about 8 different competitions in Melbourne at that time. Church, which was Church of England actually, had a team and a combined team as well as their own competition. There was a Metropolitan and there was business houses, a few like that.
There was no national comp, but that's no NBA.
Oh, no. But there was an interstate competition and there were 8 teams in the competition which became the Victorian Championships, and teams from the various competitions were able to play in that competition, and there were 8 teams playing in it. And one were the American Mormons, who were missionaries out here. They were very good. Church had a team of its own, and lots of good players like Lindsay Gaze and them played with Church. And Business House had a team, Metropolitan had a team in, and YMCA had 3 teams out of those 8. One was a Latvian team,
Or then?
No, still going.
and there was a combined team called Y1, and then there was us, who were mainly youngies, the Beavers. And so we made up 3 out of the 8 teams that played in that competition. So I played for that for 2 years, and that was interesting that although it was the top competition in the state, they played in a showgrounds hall out at the showgrounds. That's how much basketball had kicked on.
The venue.
Well, unfortunately, I lived in Albert Park and had to travel out to the showgrounds. The following year, they opened a big new stadium in Albert Park.
Yeah, right. Now around the lake there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
No, that stayed there forever. I used to play there.
Well,
when I was at high school.
the number 1 court was one that was used for the Olympic Games in '56.
Right, because we had
And
stands
it was up at the, it was up behind the exhibition buildings. It was the aquarium at one stage, and it was burnt out. So for the Olympic Games, they built the stadium up there with the proper flooring. Then that was all pulled down, of course, after the Games, and it was put into that hall and became Court 1 at Albert Park. Court 2 next door was a wooden one, and then they had 4 smaller concrete courts. And of the players who played in the YMCA competition, 3 made the Olympic team for '56. One was the vice captain, Jeff Heskett, and a couple of Latvian players. And we actually won the YMCA competition ourselves, our youngies. Yeah, it was